in the bottom left-hand position in this next map as the blue Zerg player representing Team Last Resort. And his opponent unsuccessful with the Sky Toss transition on Daybreak. Let's see what he can do to make up for it on another map that is rather old and out of most tournament map pools, but rather pleased to see it here in Cloud Kingdom. We have Spida as part of Edification Empire.
Well, there's one more thing I want to touch on from that last game, Jarosar.
Yes,
and that is
go.
The lack of Psionic Storm.
Game paused.
That was huge, because with no Psionic Storm, it basically meant that actually the Hydralisks weren't easily shut down. Imagine that at final engagement, if those High Templar, and there were a lot of them on the field, imagine if they had Storm. A couple of well-placed Storms on the Hydralisk would mean that the Voidways would no longer have to pull back, allowing them to engage the Corruptors. The Tempest then wouldn't get focused down, and suddenly that entire fight would have gone a lot different in my opinion. So,
oh yeah, for sure.
That was and that's where, in my opinion, Skytoss gets to being its super strong. Its final form is when you get those High Templar in there with Storm, because that's when you don't have the Hydras as a viable option to take out the Voidways.
Although even though he didn't have the Storm, there were like a whole bunch of High Templars near the third base that didn't become Archons when that battle started. He should have just said, oh, well, I'm not going to get Storm out in time, might as well get some Archons, and that actually didn't happen either. So I guess that would be kind of the consolation, I guess, to having Storm, but neither of those things happened, so that's a great point to point out.
So in this game, we've got a Gateway Expand coming down from Spida, but he's getting it on the low ground, so that means that he's got the potential to wall off later on.
Yep.
Obviously, from Revolution, Spawning Pool coming down, nothing too crazy at the moment on his side.
Yeah, it's likely we're going to see a second and third hatch coming down from him as well. The Probe going to do its best to be a little bit annoying, and in fact even Pylon blocking it for now, asking the drone what he's going to do about it. Is he going to go straight to the third base? The Probe sat there waiting in case it does, but looks like this Pylon's actually going to finish. So the first couple of lings before Revolution can expand.
Now, if you're in this situation as a Zerg player where you get Pylon blocked, and you know it's actually kind of going to work out relatively nicely, in my opinion, for Revolution, because he's being forced to make those 6 Zerglings, as there's going to be some mild gateway pressure put on by Spida. So, because those Zerglings have been forced, I actually feel that it's not a terrible thing.
Interestingly, though, you normally send a second drone out immediately to try and take the third base location. So I wonder if this is indicative of Revolution saying, actually, I don't intend to take a third base. Is this some sort of...
Well, Revolution can see the gateway with his Overlord. So he knows that he knows that that's down there, so he knows that he's going to have to defend it anyway. So
that supply blocks him as well.
It does. That's not what you want to have here. Of course, the Zealot will complete, but ultimately, there's 2 Zealots on the field already. That's going to take quite a few Zerglings to clear out, and therefore, this natural base shouldn't be in too much problems, but with a good engagement angle, actually Spida, as we saw in previous games, can get really nice trades.
Yeah, it needs to be a little bit careful there. Now the Ling's coming back, trying to surround everything. The Probe goes down, but the 2 Zealots are still alive and kicking, and there are only 2... Oh dear, only 2 Zerglings left with a 3rd Zealot on the way. This is actually a little bit of a problem for Revolution early on in this game. And, well, without a second hatchery at the moment, he just doesn't have the resources required in terms of larva to get the Zerglings out that he needs to repel this attack. If this hatchery gets forced to cancel, that'll be a huge blow, but it looks like this round of Zerglings plus the Queen is going to be enough. He needs to get another Queen going as soon as he can, though, because that Queen's very far away from home and very far away from injects, and there's no third base on the way.
No third base coming down, but there is a Baneling Nest just getting started. Very aggressive play going to be coming out of Revolution here, potentially.
Okay.
Meanwhile, Spida, he's got a wall off, he's got the Probe completing it, now just going to start up a Zealot pretty soon in order to complete that down. Cybernetics Core on its way, and really, this counter push from Revolution could do a lot of damage.
Now, I wonder how much Spida's read into this. If he saw that many Zerglings attacking the Zealots, he has to think to himself right now, ooh, a counterattack is a realistic possibility. Okay, he's walling himself in with the Pylon. Is there a gap there? Yes, there is, and single file going into the natural. He's going to take out the cannon first, and this could be the counterattack he was looking for. Is he going to take out the Pylons as well, or is he going to go into the main? It looks like some probes are coming down from the main to help fight here, but the Zerglings are able to go to town on them. And, ooh, wow, picking one off. Probes actually outnumber the Zerglings at the moment. He could just turn around and fight, and that's exactly what he does. So, was he better off sort of holding off and turning them into Banelings? Tough call to make. I don't know. Did he get enough damage done there, Maddles? 7 workers killed this game.
7 workers killed. To put this in perspective, knock Spida back down to equal workers as Revolution. But Spida is on 2 bases.
Exactly.
Revolution is on 2 bases.
Yeah.
That favors a Protoss player, especially when there's equal workers.
Yeah, and that's a little bit of a problem right now, and this is... See, I just think it's almost like he switched the plans up prematurely. Revolution got the Baneling Nest, and he's going, right, he's done a really annoying amount of damage in the early game with those Zealots, I'm going for this Baneling all-in off 2 base. And we were like, okay, yep, this makes sense. Then he sends his Zerglings across the map, sees that there's a wall up, even has the probe making a Paladin to try and wall things off, and the cannon was still there, and he goes in with the Zerglings anyway. So now he has no Zerglings left to make Banelings with. It feels like he switched the plan spontaneously because he thought he could get into the natural, but I don't think he realized he'd do that little damage.
If he'd done more, and he could have done more, depending on how that went down, it would have been worth it. But as you said, getting the cannon, it was a big commitment from Revolution doing that, and at the moment it just doesn't feel like it's paying off for him. Spida with the Stargate coming down, the 3rd gas on its way, most likely going to be pumping Phoenix out of that. He should just be able to retake the map control and really do a lot of harassment. The Spire is on its way for Revolution, but ultimately, I'd just say Spida is ahead in this game for the time being.
I would agree with that assessment. Another thing Revolution could have done as well, Maddles, is if he saw that there was a gap and that the Zerglings could get in, he didn't have to take out the cannon. He could have just went straight into the main base. It would have been very far away from the gateway. The probes would have to fight, force a lot of lost mining time, and I think that would have done a bit more damage. That might be the alternative to make that worth it if he had to play this game again.
Now, I've cast the curse myself by saying it would be Phoenix as a Void Ray comes out with 3 additional gateways, and this just means now that with a nice little hallucinated Phoenix there, just means that ultimately you're going to get some scouting information out. But this Spire, this is where things could get slightly interesting in this game. Mutalisk likely to come out looking at how much gas is banked up by Revolution. If this hallucinated Phoenix spots it though, cannons will go down instantly.
And he's moving into the natural expansion from the main right now. Will be spotting the Spire. And let's see if your read is correct on the reaction. There's 7 Mutalisks now on the way for Revolution as Spiders... Oh, wow, his response is starting another Stargate. Well, I guess that can work. And he's now going into full-on Phoenix production.
Now, this can work. The cannons as well are going to be the short-term stopgap to make sure that I don't die to the first few muters. But then the Phoenix, they're going to just mean that your commitment to these muters, if you get more than sort of 1 round out, I'm just outranging you. As long as I don't fail with my micro, then your Mutalisks are not going to be effective. I will get an incredibly good engagement and shut down your tech choice. And if you do that to a Zerg player who's really on an equal economy as you, slightly behind, then everything is going to be fine and peachy going into the later stages.
That's completely right, and that second Stargate is going to shut this down really hard. He needs to try and do a little bit of damage very early on with the Mutas, but the cannons just make it a little bit difficult for him to do so right now. He's going to see if he can pick up individual units in the army, but he's getting within range of that Stork, he's getting within range of those sentries and the cannon at the front. These Mutas haven't been very effective at all, so will he spot that the double Stargate and the Fleet Beacon is going down? Because if he has seen that, he might be tech switching a little bit earlier, but as it stands, he's still making Mutas, man.
Well, the Fleet Beacon is just going to be for Anion Pulse Crystals.
That's
to give
right.
the +4 range, makes Micro a cinch against Mutalisks. And look at the commitment Revolution's making to those Mutas. He's got 12 on the field. That is not a small amount by any means, but just seeing how many Phoenix are there, there's no way he can easily engage into that. The Phoenix will kite all day, all night long, and Revolution will lose all the Mutalisks. So this means that, 1,200 gas was committed into this tech play, 1,300 if you include the Spire. That's massive, and now Revolution has got to transition out of that, while Spida is just happily building up a Skytoss force.
That's true, and this is quite difficult for him to go Skytoss though, because he took his third base really, really late. You can see now it's still about halfway done. And I feel like Sky Toss shouldn't work if you do it this late. It just takes you way too long to max out, and in that time, we could see a ridiculously powerful ground army. And Revolution is actually switching out of Munis now. He's going into full-on Roach production. 1-1 and Glial Reconstitution. I think he's going to try and hit a Roach timing, maybe to deny the third base, or maybe to get some damage done at the natural, but it wouldn't be a bad idea.
To the same extent, though, Spida, he could... I see your point, but Spida can also grab down some Void Rays to really shut down those Roaches. It would work really effectively.
He could,
and
yes.
he's already got one on the field. His Robotics facility only just getting started now, so what other option does he have? Is teching up into Colossus is going to take forever. He's not going to get an Immortal out before this push comes in, but he's not producing anything out of the Stargates either.
Okay, so here is the big worry right now. At the end of the day, Spida continued producing Phoenixes, and he's got Anion Pulse Crystals as well, so yes, he'll be able to shut down these Mutas very, very quickly, but you're right, he needs to stop and just not build any more Phoenixes, and he needs to do that right now, which thankfully is what he's doing. Otherwise, you have a whole bunch of Phoenixes left on the field against what might be a ground army that becomes much bigger than the Protosses later on in the game. He needs to avoid that situation.
So, the robotics facility has just finished, the hive getting started, all of the mutas have finally been cleared out, and that was inevitable, which is why we didn't make a big deal of it. But
yeah,
now Hydras coming down for Revolution. Hydras are going to do, as long as you get a sizable group of them, deal very effectively with Phoenix. Yes, in small numbers, the Phoenix will just lift them and kill them because they're light, but Templar Archives, Robotics Bay coming out here for Spida, he's really trying to force this into the late game. Are you there, John? Okay, I'm not sure.
Let's try that again.
Can you hear me now?
I can indeed. I could hear you all along, but for some reason my mic decided to mute itself. I was actually just saying that it took a surprisingly large amount of time as the Void Ray almost... Does it get picked off there? I think it got picked off. Yes, it did. It took quite a long time for those Phoenixes to kill off that Queen, even in that number here. And Revolution is eyeing up now an opportunity to push ahead with a massive Roach Hydra army, and those Phoenixes are going to start being of limited use. He's going to have to micro them like a madman to try and discount the effectiveness of this army here.
And this is what we were really talking about earlier on, that the issue was always going to be, what if a big ground push came? And that's precisely what Revolution is executing here, very precisely. Getting some Vipers out in as well, which when there's only a couple of Colossi down for Spida, the first one still in production, it just means the Abducts can be so strong, you can take it out very easily. Minus, well, basically a Protoss force minus Colossi against a Hydra Roach army equals GG.
He's already anticipating this, though. He's getting Vipers out as the Colossi are being made. So that's going to be great because the Vipers will comfortably be high enough in number and have enough energy to do some decent abducts on those Colossi and the Void Rays as well by the time these armies meet.
Yeah, and that's completely what I'm saying, that if you get those good abducts down and get rid of those Colossi, especially before Psionic Storm's researched and ready, then you're not going to do much. But these Phoenix are still being utilized quite effectively, getting some lifts and actually lifting up an egg there, which I don't think I've seen before, which is obviously a bit of a funky way to use it. Yeah,
wow.
An egg got lifted. I didn't even know that was possible, but
that's
yeah,
the first time I've ever seen that, man.
It was a misclick. It was trying to lift up the Queen, but as we saw there, the Vipers were revealed by those Phoenix, and a couple of Overlords going down, so that's not a problem at all for Spida. He's still getting the most out of those Phoenix, and he needs to keep doing that, ultimately to keep Revolution back in his base defending, rather than pushing up, because Spida wants to secure a fourth base.
Now, Revolution is already maxed out, and it's going to be ages before 3-3 completes. We're talking like about 3 in-game minutes here. So I wonder if there was some sort of timing he could hit to try and stop this fourth base from going down, or at the very least put a bit of pressure on the third, because the Colossi count is just going to start growing now. It's ages until he actually completes his next upgrades, and that gives Spida, crucially, enough time to get Psionic Storm. He didn't have that a minute ago, and he might be using that in this engagement.
And now, of course, this is a bit of a scary position for Spida. The Vipers are there. The Phoenix could potentially zone out the Vipers slightly, but with the Hydralisks, that's going to be exceptionally hard to do. The Colossi are essential to deal as much splash damage as they can. If Spida holds this fourth, I will be absolutely amazed. There's no way he's going to be able to do that. And therefore, it just means the Revolution should pull back now, being comfortable with the fact that he's got his own fourth and fifth on the way, and he should be relatively safe.
Yeah, that storm at the end of that battle there from Spida, possibly one of the most awkward storms I've ever seen. Didn't actually get much aside from a little bit of his own army. I guess it scared his opponent off a little bit. He's going to retake the fort immediately, and Revolution is now going around the other side of the map. Note that we don't have a situation where Spida's trying to take these watchtowers, so he doesn't know about the army movements yet.
He doesn't, and he doesn't even know about these additional bases, actually, and that's a critical thing. He knows 4 are out, but the fact there's 5 in our 6th hatchery on their way, it just means the Revolution is taking the map while Spida is sitting back defending, so he's not actually getting ahead economically like he thinks he is from taking this fourth. The Vipers are taking some fire, though, from these Phoenix, but there the Hydras just stop for a second, demolishing that air army, and now it just comes down to the Abducts. If the Abducts are good, those Colossi will be shredded, and it leaves only really Storms to deal with that massive clump of Hydralisks.
Yeah, and you can see Revolution was actually getting into a really nice position for those Abducts as well. First, getting on the high ground so the ground army couldn't follow. Then, spreading out his army, just getting ready so that if Spida decided to pop up there, he could very quickly abduct the Colossi and guarantee that they'd be dead before anything else could happen. So really nice forward thinking there from our Zerg player as he moves in once again towards the fourth base.
He's moving towards the fourth, sending just a couple of units to buy the attention of Spida, unable to get the Nexus, and that Storm missing the spot completely there. But Revolution is achieving his aim, and that is to keep Spida back defending and giving the Zerg player a chance to really just get up a huge bank, take all of the bases, and be ready to produce whatever he wants. He's getting some Corruptors out. Corruptors here are great because there's only, obviously, Colossi and Phoenix, no Voidways, and well, as you see here.
And here we go. Looks like Revolution is cornered here. Great blinding cloud to start the engagement off, and it looks like Revolution just wants to use them so that he can get away. He's not interested in turning around and fighting right now. 8 Corruptors are actually building. He's going to be using those against the Colossi, but really that's what the Abducts are primarily for, and he just hasn't been able to get into a position where he can effectively use them. Spida now looking pretty darn menacing at the fourth base of Revolution.
Now, the only plus side, Revolution will lose this fourth now. The only thing going for him is that he's got a 5th and 6th. So he's got some he prepared earlier, and that means that he can afford to sacrifice this while pushing up in. He's also got Broodlords coming out. Those Broodlords will allow him to engage relatively well, but just look at the sheer count of Stalkers. 23, 2 Voidways there, Tempest also coming out. Spida's prepared for this transition and is happy to sacrifice a lot of this army, but yet again, we're into a bit of a base trade situation. A couple of DTs in the midst of all of those Hydras shredding through everything. Is there detection for Revolution? No, there is not. That is really painful to see.
Really good choice, wanting to ensure that he wins a long-term base race. A couple of sentries on the high ground wouldn't go on this either, since he has 1600 gas to try and force field off this army for as long as possible. But it looks like the DTs aren't going to do the job. Even with the Broodlords there, there's nothing they can do right now as Spida moves in and is about to demolish the Natural of Revolution. He needs to either get out of the way of this army or kill off the main very, very quickly, so that makes it really difficult for Revolution to remax, because he'd have to build all his tech once again. And the Great Aspire is there. It looks like the upgrade's going to complete. He needs to pick that off pretty quick, though, if he doesn't want any more Broodlords popping out.
Yeah, definitely pick off the Great Aspire, go kill the Hive, and then mass recall. The Mothership Core is with the army.
Yes.
Kill all the key tech, run away, and be like, herp derp, I've got 2 mining bases, and I've got all my tech. What have you got? Not too much. Actually, wow.
What? What? No!
Why? Why wouldn't you kill it? DTs, though, they're killing the bottom right base, and this is really important, because now Revolution has but one possible mining base. He has got no income at the moment. It's actually 0. 0 income means that ultimately he has to win here and now, but Spida, he's pumping out more and more Tempest. Tempest deal with Broodlords. Easy peasy.
I wonder what he was thinking there, man. I left you the Hive to give you hope.
That Hive, I think it was more.
It's like half a second before the mass recall. The army wasn't even there. He didn't actually need to mass recall right there and then. I think
It was
he did
one of those moments. It was like, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna make this look so swish. I'm gonna mass recall just as I kill the hive. It'll be like, and then he did it too soon. It was like,
yeah, but the broodlings pop out and I'm gone, and it's gonna look so amazing. And oh, I see. Is basically what just happened there.
not just like when you're showing off playing some basketball, and you're just like, I'll take like a shot from half court, thinking you're looking really fly, and you turn around like, yeah, and you realize you missed. No fun. But yeah, of course,
right,
this now...
you take shots from half court that often that when you shoot from half court, you turn around and expect it to go in, Maddles? Is that how baller you are?
Yes. Like legit, I do actually shoot from around the halfway quite often. Anyway, we do have the third Nexus coming down, and this is now Revolution going for a last-ditch attempt, and there we see the Corruptors and Hydras knock off some of the Tempests. Where is the army for Spida? It's sitting by the fourth, wants to keep that up, and things are getting rather tense, J-Shock.
Is there an observer out on the field? I noticed Tim must be in the chat if you're starting to say that. Here we go, the bleed forward coming from the Stalkers, picking off a single Broodlord there. An observer would be so useful right now because if he hovers that near the army, of course there are overseers, he has to be careful. That gives the Tempest the range that they need, but this is actually a good position now for Spida. Oh my god, those Storms and the Vipers abducting the Tempest and Colossus into absolutely nothing. That wasn't
Those abducts achieved one thing. They abducted the Colossi into and the Tempest into range of the army to attack them. It's like, here, have a couple more shots at my remaining force. Revolution's just traitorous Vipers is all I would say. Now, of course, this is not looking too comfortable. Another brilliant storm going down. This is spectacular to see, really destroying everything. And there